when the news came out, people were like, oh my God, I literally thought you guys were doing this as like a side hustle.
When a company buys another company, what they're really buying is the habit, the consumer habit of purchasing that item.
The demand from Costco was so strong that we couldn't keep up with it. And we actually had to tell them, hey, like, we got to slow this down.
And they are generally bad at turning consumer insights into fresh, culturally relevant innovation.
Yes.
And so that's why they buy instead of build.
It was super competitive. And we had every major,
Wow.
like we had Pepsi, Kellogg, General Mills.
Really?
Conagra, Smuckers, wonderful company, kind of. We had like basically every strategic we could have wanted in it was in it.
Like, if you sell for 600 million, like, do they literally just like send out wires at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And then like, that's it.
Like their legal team is like, send us your wire info.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, yeah, it is kind of a funny thing, like where you like refresh your bank account and you're like, oh my God, like that's, it's just like, there it is.
For Investor, we were able to really continue on for another 5 years and really scale this brand from, I think when Investor invested, we were about 70 million, and then we went up to about 240 million. So they really helped us get to a meaningful size in the market.
In 2015, we did the rebrand. So like a year
2015
later.
the rebrand, and then 2016 was 35 million. Is that the right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then 2017 is 125 million, and the press release for the acquisition is October 6th of 2017.
Yeah.
So that's not super long.
No, it was so
not
fast.
really long at all, actually. Yeah,
I mean,
I didn't realize it was so fast.
People were shocked. Like when the news came out, people were like, oh my God, I literally thought you guys were doing this as like a side hustle. And people were totally stunned. And because we had no investors, we had no industry connectivity. Like we didn't know anybody really. It was almost over before it started in a certain way.
Yeah. Because like, so I'm tomorrow, today's the 6th, Tuesday. This isn't going to come out for probably a couple weeks, but tomorrow I'm putting out a ton of data on M&A. And I think the median time to exit is like 23 years. And like the fastest is like 7, and none of those deals are 9. So I actually didn't even appreciate what was so crazy to me about the RXBAR thing. Was the bootstrap part of it, which we'll dive into in a second here. But bootstrapping to, I want to make sure I get this like published number right, like 600. Is it exactly 600?
Yeah, 600. Yeah, it was 600.
600 million. That is crazy. Doing it in basically 4 years is insane. If you had investors, it would be one of the best IRR deals ever. But you didn't have any investors. So let's dive into that a little bit. Like, how in the world? My first question is, how in the world do you go from 35 to 125 million without? I mean, did you have like lenders at least or something?
So the way it started was a line of credit from Wells Fargo that was co-signed by I think Jared and Peter's parents. So it was like, they pledged their marketable securities portfolio basically in order to get us a couple $100,000 line of credit. And that was the early days.
Yeah.
And then that scaled. And as we were scaling, we were able to sort of like release their obligation and go to like a traditional line of credit that was just based on the business. And then eventually we switched to another lender, Huntington Bank, and they helped us sort of in those later years. But this is another thing that I always talk to founders about is like, you guys should start relationships with banks early because the lenders are really, really good partners if you get the right ones. And it forces so much good hygiene. Like we had to be basically profitable the whole way because we had debt and we didn't have the option for equity really until we were already big enough that we didn't need it. And basically the way it starts is you send out like a 1 or 2 page teaser to 30 to 50 probably potential acquirers. And then there's like a first round of interest, first round of bids, and then you get a second round of interest, and that narrowed it down to 10. And those 10 we did management presentations for 10. And then of those 10, they submit their bids again after that round. It became 5.
That's pretty competitive.
It was super competitive, and we had every major,
Wow.
like we had Pepsi, Kellogg, General Mills,
Really?
Conagra, Smuckers, wonderful company, kind of. We had like basically every strategic we could have wanted in it was in it. And
Huh.
then the 5 finalists were Smuckers, Pepsi, Mills, Kellogg, and Mars. And then
Are you
Mars,
missing anyone from that? And Mondelez, I guess. Like,
yeah, I know, it's pretty good. I think Mondelez actually passed pretty early. They were one that like was not in it at all. But
interesting.
during the final stage, Mars dropped out because they bought Kind, which we didn't know at the time, but it later came
Oh,
out that they were pursuing Kind, and that was a much bigger deal. Um, and then
wait, how much did Kind
Smuckers,
go for?
I think in that transaction it might have been 1.2 billion or something like that.
Wow.
But
Okay.
they've had kind of a couple different sales, something in that range, but they were much bigger than us. And then Smucker dropped out. So the final 3 bidders were Pepsi, Mills, and Kellogg. And I think like the final round of bidding led to like a huge jump in price because they were sort of bidding against each other, which is
Yeah.
all really credit to like a super competitive process.
That is like, I mean, there are companies that go for hundreds of millions that have one bidder, and like it's
Yeah.
so do you have any sense for how much the price increased due to that competitiveness, or is it kind of blind?
Yeah, it went like I think the first round of final bids was at like 425, and it ended up at
Damn.
600.
Like,
Yeah.
if you sell for 600 million, like, do they literally just like send out wires at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and then like that's it?
Like their legal team is like, send us your wire info.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, yeah, it is kind of a funny thing, like where you like refresh your bank account. You're like, oh my God, like
Yeah,
it's just like, there it is.
that's insane. Like, what
Yeah.
if like, yeah, I mean, you don't like call them or like go into the office and like do it with them and be like, this is the number that you gotta type in. Like, there's
I mean,
no.
we had like our attorney, I think the day that the wires were sent, he was there and like, went through a spreadsheet that was like, hey, confirm your numbers basically, so they don't make a mistake. But it's really no different than like if you were sending a wire for any amount of money.
The second year, 2016, is when we launched the crackers, and that was just instant overnight success, and I think really just kind of blew us away.
Wow.
I think what was also really exciting is, we got into Whole Foods really quickly, got national distribution at Whole Foods with the crackers. Those did really well. And then pretty quickly on, we got accepted into Costco with the crackers, started in a few regions. And actually, the demand from Costco was so strong that we couldn't keep up with it. And we actually had to
Yeah.
tell them, hey, like, we got to slow this down. Like, we actually
I was
think
gonna
took a
say
break.
that's kind of a
Yeah.
crazy to go from Whole Foods
We didn't have
to
enough
next.
manufacturing. Yeah.
Yeah, Whole Foods to Costco is like kind of a crazy jump.
Totally. I think one of the challenges we had in the early days with our manufacturing, because it was all outsourced, is, we were nut-based, obviously made of almonds, but we also were peanut-free, and then gluten-free, and had some of these other allergens that we didn't have. So there wasn't a lot of manufacturers who could kind of meet all of our unique needs. And
I
so
see.
had to be pretty creative.
Were you outsourced manufacturing the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay. That's, yeah. That would be like, I would almost expect you to like in-house it at some point, if like, because like I'm sure like you can't do. Well, can you is there like any cross contamination at all, or like?
No. Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like not even the same facility. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So,
that's crazy. Or like,
don't quote me on that, but yeah.
it's a big constraint. Is my point.
Exactly.
So Costco. Was Costco just like, you said you got to slow down, but like did Costco kind of take you guys all the way? Like, so I guess what I'm hearing is like you joined.
Yeah.
There was a lot of traction from that point on, and it basically became Whole Foods, Costco, and then like was it Costco into the sunset, or like tell us a little bit more about like
Yeah.
the I'm going like up the revenue curve, if you can tell.
Yes, I remember we started with Costco. We were in a few regions. It performed extremely well. We then had to take a break because we didn't have the capacity to support that. I
Yeah.
know, maybe we waited 6 months. We got another co-manufacturer in play, and then we kind of hit the gas on Costco, and that quickly just grew really fast. We slowly went into all the regions. We became everyday items, became a top-selling item there. But from Vestar, we were able to really continue on for another 5 years and really scale this brand from, I think when Vestar invested, we were about 70 million, and then we went up to about 240 million. So they really
Yeah.
helped us get to a meaningful size in the market, and they were always really supportive of what the brand was about. And they knew, if you think about what was most important to Simple Mills, it was the mission, the brand, and its people. And the leadership team that we had with Simple Mills kind of early on was really with Simple Mills all 10 years. So they didn't replace the leadership team. The same people were still in place, and they really just got behind the mission, which was awesome.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the most valuable things they did for us was really push us to kind of make that transition from being just focused on growth to also being focused on profitability. And I think that was kind of the kick in the butt that we really needed. And I think that's really what really helped us kind of hit this great milestone with the acquisition of Flowers. Yeah. So I will say one thing that one of my best partners over the years was, at the time, they were Stonegate. They, I think, are under new ownership. So now they're SG Growth Partners. They're a lender.
Okay.
But, after we hired the Series A, I think they bridged us from our Series A to our Series B. We then took out debt, and that covered our working capital needs during that time. So it really minimized the amount of money that we had to raise. And they were just such awesome partners to us. And, over the course of the years, as I was growing into the role and learning kind of on the job, and sometimes we were caught by surprise, like
Totally.
giant Costco splurges or things like that, where all of a sudden we're like, oh crap, we need more money, those sleepless nights. And they were kind of always there to kind of support us and give us whatever kind of unique arrangements from a debt perspective to help us carry us through.
So on one hand, there was retailers, and the way we started there was by going from the most premium, the top of the top, where the early adopters are. And then we made our way through the adoption curve, right, to the early majority, and then ultimately Walmart and Target, conventional grocery in the mass market.
What retailers are the early adopters, like Whole Foods?
At the time, our first major brand name was Dean and DeLuca, which is no longer in business.
Never even heard of it.
Guess we didn't sell enough for them. Do your research. It's a good one. It's the Erewhon 1.0, basically.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. Or like Happier Grocery 1.0. And then it was Whole Foods, right? And as to bridge the gap, and then natural channel. And then we also, very crucially, we realized that 70% of ketchup is consumed in food service, e.g. restaurants. And more than just a sales channel, restaurants are the theater of food. It's where you go to discover things, and it's where you go to get a curated experience and trust the chef, right? What are the specials today? There's only one burger on the menu. There's only one ketchup on the menu, compared to when you go to a grocery store and you have all these different options. And so we spent an inordinate amount of effort in basement kitchens in New York City, kind of texting our way to work with chefs, figuring out how to work these deals with our premium product in order to be on the tables of restaurants so that people could see it, and then they could go to the grocery stores and they've already had it or they've already seen it. And there's a certain mind share, right? There's a certain mental availability and trust that comes with that. And so we created a flywheel with those two channels. We build each leg of the stool over 7 years. At the time, you mentioned Unilever, who we're now a part of. They were in a very interesting position in that these large multinationals are really, really good at sustaining and protecting business over centuries. And they are generally bad at turning consumer insights into fresh, culturally relevant innovation.
Yes.
And so that's why they buy instead of build. It ends up being both less expensive for them in the long run, and it also ends up being more aligned with their culture of risk aversion and, moving away from speculation and into certainty. And so at the time, Kraft Heinz, which I think we'll talk about later in this show as well, was attempting to acquire Unilever.
Oh, interesting.
So Kraft and Heinz was a merger, and Kraft Heinz put an unsolicited takeover bid into Unilever at a significant premium to their share price. And in that moment, the management of Unilever had to convince the shareholders and the board that it would be more valuable in their own hands than if they were to sell at this premium to Kraft Heinz. And so as part of that, they needed to signal to the market and make changes, divestitures, like they sold their margarine and spreads division, and they needed to make acquisitions. They had just bought Dollar Shave Club, but they said we need to be more committed to millennials and the younger customer.
Yep.
And we recognize that for business and also our purpose, we need to be part of the future of food and clean food.
So they say no to Kraft Heinz, and so they say no to going with Kraft Heinz, and we're just going to do our own M&A to.
Yes.
Okay.
To basically sharpen this business and grow it, right?
And Sir Kensington's is part of that.
And increase the growth, and we were part of that story, right? Okay.
So did they like approach you, and they were saying like, hey, like this is our thesis, like we want to kind of buy in and build out like this portfolio, or what can you share about sort of like that actual process?
We had the opportunity to meet with the North American CEO, I would say socially or on a friendly basis.
Okay.
And then a few months later, when this happened, is when their interest picked up, which became something to increase the urgency. And, and then we made a decision. We made, it was a lot of coordination, a lot of, in some senses, negotiation with our investors who were more long-term focused. When a company buys another company, what they're really buying is the consumer habit of purchasing that item. And they're buying the social organism that is connected to that business that most people call brand. And to embed yourself in the social organism, to embed yourself in people's minds, and to embed yourself in the habits that create retention and commitment to a product, that takes a lot of time, right? And so when you very differently than, I would say, technology products, software products, on the SaaS side, you lock people in with contracts, right? And also switching costs are higher.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you, Drew. I mean like SaaS leaders. And then on the consumer software side, distribution can happen so quickly. And once a product is sticky, it tends to be really sticky. In a consumer products, it's a lot harder to measure that retention on a short period of time. And so operating history really matters, right?